All right. So there's two kinds of trauma: big T trauma and little T trauma. Right. So the big T trauma is the stuff that we know causes PTSD. Okay. Being raped, going to war, being in a bad car wreck where maybe you were really injured badly, a house fire, right? Like the big stuff. We know that stuff causes trauma or PTSD. The other side of that is little T trauma. Now those are things that's like really insidious, right? And just like really almost like benign. It's like what you feel, okay? The little T trauma is like third grade math class. Hey, come up here and do this problem on the board. You're like, sure will. And then you go up to the board and you do the problem wrong, okay? And you start walking back to the class and the classmates are laughing at you. And you say to yourself something like, I'm never doing that again. How could I be so stupid? Whatever you say to yourself, right? Let me show you how it works. All right. So this is your brain. And I know it's not like look like a brain, but this is how it works, right? So this is the cognitive part of the brain. So that's where you think. This is the emotional part of the brain. So obviously where your emotions come from. And this is the fight or flight, like the amygdala, right? That's where your fight or flight sits at, okay? Now, under normal circumstances, something happens, right? So we're gonna call that stimuli. Let's say cheeseburgers with Jamie, right? So we go, it's coking and joking, we're having a good time, right? What happened is going to travel this neural pathway up to the emotional part of the brain. The emotional part of the brain is going to inspect that packet of information to see if there's anything like negative in there. That was a good time. Food was good, company was good, I enjoyed myself, right? From there, so it goes from the emotional part of the brain up into the cognitive part of the brain. And it's going to sit there in that cognitive part of the brain until you go to sleep. And then when you hit your REM sleep, it gets put away into your memory bank, right? So that next time you think of like, man, I really want a good cheeseburger. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to call Jamie. We'll go have a cheeseburger together because that was a good experience for me, okay? Now, when trauma happens, it's a whole different thing. The first thing that happens is there's a negative cognition. So a negative thought. I should have known better. Right? That makes sense? Like, that's a pretty common one. There's a lot of us that all walk around with this, like, I should have known better. And what happens is that thing just shows up all the time, and you're like, why is it? Right? Well, we'll get to that. So this all happens at once. Boom, negative thought. There is a cutoff between the cognitive part of the brain and the emotional part of the brain. You cannot operate in the cognitive part of the brain when trauma is happening. Here's why. Because the amygdala is all fired up. So your brain is now, poof, I'm in fight or flight. I'm in trouble, right? Cutoff happens, I should have known better, and then your brain takes a snapshot. Again, this all happens at the same time. What you see, hear, feel, smell, taste, who, what, where, you got it? Mm-hmm. You can put yourself right back in that moment. And it might be triggered by a smell or a sound or a feeling, whatever. You're like, oh, and it gets all fired up again. So your brain takes, so this is called a node, by the way. Not that that's important, but that's called a node. So this travels up that neural pathway same way that the other one did, right? But it gets to the emotional part of the brain. The emotional part of the brain is like, this is not safe to move on and put in our memory banks. I don't know what to do with a lot of this stuff. So it gets stuck. Kind of trapped by your emotional part. Mm-hmm. And that creates the heavy emotional response because it's trapped, right? Which then, this is the sucky part. That creates a hyper awareness to that negative thought. So now your brain at a subconscious level is always looking for, I should have known better. That's why we overreact, because every time that's reinforced, it kind of clogs up that neural pathway. But we're reacting every time to that original stimuli that happened, even though something else happened because I should have known better shows up. Well, eventually, that neural pathway gets clogged up, right? Once that happens, post, after trauma, stress. After trauma, stress. The big T stuff, it's going to put you into this quicker because those chunks are bigger, because it was a big experience. These littler things, it might take a while. You might have something that happened when you were 3 years old, and it's just kind of been annoying, and it shows up every once in a while. But then you're 30, and it like, and now you can't shake it because of all the stress and stuff. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.